The Ladini Shakti Radha is the only thing which is actually directly enjoyed by Krishna. The Samyogini Radha and the Viyogini Radha are indirectly enjoyed because they're serving the purposes of the Ladini Shakti, which is to enhance Krishna's enjoyment, enhance his pleasure. So the idea is that things which are gained after a long struggle, a war which is won, after a good fight, the victory is all the sweeter, you see. So to enhance the experience of sweetness in Krishna, to enhance the experience of pleasure in Krishna, they play hard to get. You see. So the Viyogini Shakti Radha is serving to manifest such things as man and other Vipalamva aspects, which cause the sense of separation between each other, even though there isn't, ontologically speaking. But in terms of the workings of Yogamaya and the progress of the Leela, these different Shaktis serve to create circumstances because on the basis of Radha's desire, Ladini Shakti Radha's desire is to increase her value in the eyes of Krishna. Yes. See, Krishna plays his flute, calls everyone to Rasa Mandal, and then tells them to go back home. Breaks their heart. He's a heartbreaker. You see. And they're crying torrents of tears, washing their mascara and their kumkum from their dress, and it's all mixing with the mud on the ground in the Hari Hari. But, Krishna's getting some, pleasure out of making them work a little hard to get him. But he's not the only one who's playing that game. Tit for tat. Radharani's also playing this game. All the Sakhis, especially in Radharani's group, play this game. Because they know, it's not only that Krishna doesn't want it, especially in relationship to the living entity who's fallen into this material world on account of having thrown away the eternal relationship. However you want to see it. The problem is that Krishna doesn't want to be taken cheaply again. So therefore, he's freely being on his flute, and your ears perk up. What was that? And come in contact with the Krishna consciousness movement, and then another Trigalidi, a few years down the line, after struggling and struggling, to overcome your anarthas and all these things, so finally, Krishna's, but he's just making himself a little obvious to catch your attention, and then as you reach out to touch him, then he backs up, and slips behind another tree. Makes it very difficult for us. And increasing our crying, our desperation, our anxiety about the whole affair, until we're torrents of tears, thinking that the whole world is absent or vacant in the absence of Krishna. I think that's what you know.
I read somewhere like Rama Vaivaka Purana or Vaivishya Purana, they said that Radha curse, like some jivas when they do that curse, they just stay counting pure and love. The sense that they couldn't like really play part of Lula. And just in essence that she can curse and they can come down to the pure and
Yeah, but there's a reason why she can. Because they were friends. They've committed aparadha. him. But in any case, when we come to the position of being able to participate in the Leelas of Krishna directly, we're participating now. This is also part of the Leela of the Lord.
Because like,
We're also participating in a Leela which is also relishable for Krishna. When Krishna, exhibits his compassionate nature, which is like gold, upon the gold background of the spiritual world, it is not so, what do you call it, appreciated. But when he exhibits that same compassionate nature in the black background, the contrast makes it all the more attractive. So he relishes that exhibition of his compassionate nature here in a way that he cannot relish there. So if he was intelligently made the best use of the bad bargain by allowing that bad bargain to serve even a purpose which serves a higher end than the way they do in the spiritual world. By relishing the same thing in such a contrast.
Master said, like all like what is the way we should try to use this? What is the only way? How do you this is the way just like service
everything is included within the chanting. But in order for everything to be included in the chanting, there has to be the development of one's.
There's a goal and means to achieve.
Yes, but chanting is not let's say, such a simplistic thing. Chanting includes the culture of attitude, the culture of the ideal. That's why it's essential to receive Nam from the non-movement, who is qualified Vaishnava and who can direct you by proper instructions as to the meaning of the definition, give definition to the chanting of the mantra. Otherwise, it's kind of a generic thing. Just like Narada Muni was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dhruva Maharaj was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. But because he was not fit, Narada did not give him, definition to that chanting. And as such, he got the generic form of Narayana, or Vishnu, the darshan of Vishnu instead of the darshan of Vasudeva Krishna. So the chanting requires that there's some direction, some scientific approach. Otherwise, without scientifically understanding things, then we may chant in an indiscreet way, which will not allow us to actually culture the proper, attitude.
So the Guru gives framework.
Yes, he and gradually seeing the intrinsic nature of his disciple. He gives more detailed understanding, direction, so that we can understand that within Nam is our Guru.
It's our sending process, so we should just try to lower tolerance.
It's always descending. Because it's Nam is a person, not a person. Nam is persons, many persons. Your wife, can be chanting. Who's the older Albert boy? Besides Balaji, there are others. Sridham? Madhavan was younger. Subal was younger. But I think Sridham is older. He's the older brother. I don't know. Anyway, Sridham. In any case, there are older ones. So when they're chanting, just like we may chant, or someone who's in the backside one, your Hare, Soda Krishna, Soda Ram. So because the Shaktis, all the Shaktis are there, so in the Mahamantra, as we become more and more fit and actually need something, it's a question of necessity, because without having the necessity, there's nothing really to invoke that particular aspect of Krishna's message. There's no, there has to be demand, then there's supply. So it's necessary to understand, gradually. We start out, in a vague way, chanting Hare Krishna with the concept of being Krishna Nitya. What is the implication of that statement? How does that actually translate in terms of, the specific, heartfelt desires of the individual toward Krishna? That will gradually become manifest as we become more attached to Krishna by their grace. Everything is by the grace of Krishna, by the grace of Nam. When Nam is satisfied, because Nam is conscious. Nam knows very well the kind of attitude we're having toward him when we're chanting. So when he's satisfied with our approach, then he reveals something more. He inspires from within and from without. He inspires us more and more. Ultimately, Nam is everything. Yet Nam is Guru also. Guru is within. So when Krishna Nam, and when ultimately Radha Nam, when they will be satisfied that you're serious about your approach to them, then they lift the curtain of Yogamaya and allow you to see your eternal Guru Swarup in the course of your chanting. Everything is there. You will notice that your Guru will be seen in a particular light according to your particular attitude toward Krishna. He's the liaison of Guru Shakti, Vipa Shakti, to the Jivas. It's not actually the Jiva who is Guru, but it's because he's being endowed with Shakti by the desire of Krishna that Guru is manifesting a particular aspect of Krishna's Shakti that Krishna wants to reveal to any particular jiva. Therefore, different jivas will be having different visions of their guru. So, just like sometimes we hear all these arguments about whether Prabhupada is a Saka or whether Prabhupada is a Gopi or this or that, and they're they always sit in my it's due to small-mindedness. Their they're unable to accommodate the fact that the Guru Tattva is multifaceted. Saying a Guru, even unknowingly, that Guru, he may be seen by his disciple in a particular light. When the Guru will come to know of the disciple's tendency, then the Guru may consciously express in accordance with that particular thought. He must. It's his duty. If he's incapable, then he requires a substitute, so to speak, and a substitute teacher, someone, another manifestation of Guru Tattva, who is actually capable of expressing those bonds. But the disciple will always see his Guru in light of his particular style. If he's in Sakyabhav, he will see that his Guru is the follower of Bali or the follower of Subal. If he's in Madhurya, he will see that his Guru is the follower of Ananda, the follower of Devi, the follower of Lakshmi, according to his particular liking, which is noticed by the individual disciple by introspection of his own inherent nature. The disciple is duty bound, not duty bound, but intelligently. What do you call it?
Program.
Not programmed.
Yeah, I know.
I mean to say that he is obliged. Yes, obliged. Must be responsible enough, because after all, it's the disciple who is supposed to be wanting to go back to Godhead. It's the disciple who is supposed to be exercising his free will, according to his own volition, to approach Krishna, with, let's say, firewood in hand, to approach Guru, to approach Krishna with a particular desire for sacrificing at the feet of Krishna, for Krishna's pleasure in a particular capacity. So the disciple has to be intelligent enough, responsible enough to actually look within. You see in our temple, Radharani showing like this. This mudra, Radharani is mudra. Not the gopis never use mudra. They use all kinds of mudras to express themselves when they're dancing with Krishna, but not the Aishwarya mudras, of the Sri Sampradaya. but this particular mudra is Radharani's message to us to look within, to go deep within. This is the introspection mudra. She's telling us.
Prabhupada said it?
To look within. I forget where I was told that by someone.
That Prabhupada gave that instruction.
Something like that. I'm sorry, but I can't.
Yeah.
But it's good enough. Whether it is or it isn't, it's as good as if it is, because the point is important. And I'm sure that's what Radharani wants, because that's the message I got from Radharani.
Inside.
To look within, to look to see your own inherent nature, and to notice, be awake enough, Jeev Jago, be awake enough to notice the liking which is produced of your own inherent nature, and follow. You have to, when you see that there's a need, this is the meaning of need. If you don't see any of that, then you cannot say that you actually have clearly ascertained the need. When there's need in the disciple's life, then there's actual need for a guru. When there's need in the disciple's life, then that need for guru becomes from vague to specific. So when there's need, jigyasu shreya uttama, when there's actually a need to inquire, anxiousness to inquire about these things, from within the heart, jivasya tattva jigyasu, na arthayas chera kamu, that we don't want to waste our time on any other activities than those activities which help us to get the answers to the question of the truth of our soul's eternal relationship with Krishna. You see? Then there's need. So then we approach Guru to find out what is favorable, what is unfavorable, etc., in terms of both external and internal cultivation. Then as we gradually make progress in terms of our ability to see the truth of ourself by our own introspection, because after all we're trying to discover who we are. So it's not like we have to look outside to everyone else to find out who we are. We have to look within our own heart to understand. We have to clean our own heart. We have to clean the mirror, the Cheko Darpana, so that we can see the true reflection of ourself in that clean mirror. That is Sankirtan. By performing Sankirtan, the mirror of the heart becomes cleansed, so that you will see the true form of your own Swarup by the grace of Nam Sankirtan. And as the need will come, then Nam gradually does all the work. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna. Punya Shravana Kirtana. That means Nam Kirtan also. Prityantak sto yavadrani. Krishna within the heart. He cleanses the desire for material enjoyment, makes one fixed up, on the pure devotional path, and gives one impetus by causing one to experience the taste of Krishna consciousness. Raso varjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartante. Gradually, he becomes fixed up in the consciousness of Krishna, but that consciousness is an individual consciousness of Krishna. So individually, we will be individually seeing Krishna in a particular individual way. That consciousness of Krishna, how I will see Krishna. When I see Krishna, if I ask you, what is it about Krishna that is attractive to you? It may not be exactly 10% comparable to the way, to the way I see Krishna. What is attractive to me about Krishna? I like this when I see Krishna. It's so sweet. Plain being smile, But if I was going to, if someone was to ask me, what's the quintessence of the attractiveness of Krishna? What would it be? You would have to go to his face, because that's the king of moons, situated on the throne of moons. Is it his eyes? Is it the moving smile? What was the smile without the eyes? What was the eyes without the smile? But he can smile with his eyes. What is the most all-enchanting thing about Krishna's eyes? In my heart, I find Krishna's eyes totally overwhelmed with beauty of Krishna's eyes. And when we think that those eyes are overwhelmed with beauty of Krishna's eyes, and we identify with Radha's eyes, and we want to have also mutable peace, which will be meant for satisfying, Krishna in our every effort to satisfy. Radharani is the ultimate object of our satisfaction. Radharani will tell us that you go and satisfy my Krishna. But no, I can't do that. Because if I do that, then I'll lose my standing as your intimate, Nikunja Pinka. But my question is, you can contemplate it. That Narada Muni went on Krishna's request to gather some foot dust from Krishna's devotees. So he went to the earthly Brahmins, nothing doing. He went to the Vaikuntha Vasis, nothing. He went even to the queens of Dwarka. They were not beautiful. Why did they didn't have? Huh? They didn't have? All they had, certainly they had. Foot dust, everyone. Right. You have foot dust too? Are you prepared to put your foot dust on Krishna's? Curious. They were not prepared. Why? The earthly Brahmins were afraid of going to hell by transgressing the rules and regulations of Veda. The Vaikuntha Vasis were afraid of losing their standing in Vaikuntha because they think that their qualification for remaining in the Vaikuntha atmosphere is their strict adherence to the Vidyas, the Vaidhi. So they were afraid of losing their standing in Vaikuntha. They were attached to liberation. The earthly Brahmins were attached to mukti, and the Vaikuntha Vasis, they were attached to their Samiti Mukti, Sharsti Mukti, Saloti Mukti. And the queens of Dwarka, they were attached to their husband. They were attached to their husband in this way. They weren't actually attached to their husband so much for his sake. They were attached to their husband for their sake. There was some desires for self-satisfaction in relationship to the husband. So therefore, there was a consideration that if we will transgress the rules and regulations of the lifetime, then surely we will go to hell. The fire of hell is nothing in comparison to the fire of our separation from our husband. So we don't mind going to hell. We don't mind losing our standing in Dwarkapuri. Narada was saying, they say, but we cannot tolerate the fire of separation from our husband. So we're very sorry that you cannot do that. Then he went to the gopis, and the gopis immediately, without any question, immediately gave their foot dust. Narada was shocked. He says that, aren't you afraid of going to hell? Hell? What's hell? The fire that we experience is millions of times more than the fire of hell. He said, aren't you afraid of losing your standing in Braja? He says, we may go anywhere according to our destiny, but we only want to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. We only want to be absorbed in thinking of the pleasure of Krishna. He says, well, aren't you afraid of the fire of separation of your beloved? They say that yes, the fire of separation, is almost intolerable. But still, we can bear that. But to know that Krishna is in distress is absolutely unbearable for us. The queens, they would prefer to have Krishna. They would prefer to have the satisfaction of having their husband with his mistress. The gopis were prepared to relinquish their relationship with Krishna in consideration of his happiness, his pleasure. You see? But the question comes here that do we think that just because they immediately allowed Narada off with your heads, you're eternally damned to hell. You're eternally damned. You must leave Brajadam and go to hell. You must, eternally experience the fire of separation. How could you dare to think, to put your foot dust? Don't you know that I'm Param Purusha? I'm the Supreme Controller, Parameshvara. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Sarvaloka including Brajaloka, Golok. Don't you know these things? How could you even dare to think to put your foot dust on my head? So therefore, you think Krishna's thinking in this way? That damn them to hell, damn them to become, to lose their standing in Braja, and damn them from ever having my association, because they did the dastardly deed of putting their foot dust on my head. How dare they? Krishna, you think Krishna's thinking? That's the mark of their surrender, the mark of their unalloyed love. They're ready to go to hell. They're ready to lose their standing in Braja. They're ready to endure eternal separation from Krishna, if that's what makes Krishna happy. But Krishna's reciprocation with that standard of sentiment, surrendered service attitude, loving sentiment, is that he embraces them all the more. He never condemns them to hell. He never sends them to away from Braja. but rather they become more intimately connected in love, as none other can. So just compare this with the concept of Aindra Dāsa. If we will not be prepared to do anything for the pleasure of God on her command, even if it means that we have to directly associate with Krishna in the rasa things to please her, even if it means that we have to directly embrace Krishna, allow Krishna to practically rape us in the course of her leelas, which are designed for the fulfillment of her desires to share her Swayam Rup Prajanananda and Krishna with others, which gives her 10 million times the happiness of her own meeting with Krishna, for her pleasure, 10 million times the happiness. You know, do you think that Radharani is going to say that, oh, how is it that she could dare to allow herself to be enjoyed by Krishna? You know, therefore I ban her, you know, from the Nikunja Sevas. You know, let her go to hell. Let her lose her standing. We won't let her lose her standing in Braja. We'll give her a little cottage somewhere, and maybe, you know, an expansion of my Krishna will go to satisfy her desires for direct union. This is very important and very deep tattva, which is not understood by most of those who give lip service to common Gopika. They don't understand the deepest implications of full surrender to the will of God. But Prabhupada understood. He understood it when he preached it. Although we don't expect anything, but even we can ask, my dear Radha, if we know that Krishna derives pleasure from seeing the beautiful face of God, then how can we dare to ask Radha to tell her Krishna to turn his glance on us, if it wasn't in the consideration of the happiness that Radha experiences from him? You understand? It's a very important tattva, deep tattva, which should be understood if we want to understand the full implications of what it means to become as maidservant of Radha. But it has to be the ideal has to be embraced on the platform of complete self-effacement, complete self-sacrifice. There's no question of maintaining any selfishness in the matter of trying to exploit the situation for self-satisfaction, like Kutra, or like Rukmini before. Rukmini sleeps with Krishna. She wants to see her husband. She curses the cock who crows in the morning because she's going to have to bear the separation from her husband. But Radharani doesn't want to see Krishna. She has no personal desire.
She sleeps with Krishna too. But her sleeping with Krishna and Rukmini are like day and night. Krishna condescends to fulfill Rukmini's desire. But Radha condescends to fulfill Krishna's desire to see her. And she curses the cock in the morning because she's unhappy that her Krishna will not be able to consent indeed, and her Krishna will feel separation. That is her concern. Such is her love for Krishna. Totally selfless. In Braja, the devotees think of the other. Think of the welfare of the others. Even if it means I have to go through hell for the pleasure. That is the meaning of sanctification. To cultivate that consciousness when we're doing the distribution or when we're doing chanting in the temple or anything, whatever we're doing. To take some trouble. This is the meaning, this is our training, tapasya brahmacharjina. To accept some voluntary austerity for the pleasure of Krishna. It begins in a relatively external way, but the principle is the same. When that same principle is internalized, as we begin to make progress, then we begin to understand that we're being trained in Braja Bhakti from the very beginning. And we didn't realize it. Prabhupada is training us up in Braja Bhakti from the very beginning. He's giving us the very, you can say the foundational concept in a way that we can understand. So that when we begin to enter into the internal tattva, you'll realize you'll already have the foundation in our training. That all we have to do is apply the thing in terms of our external training. Just like Srila Prabhupada has trained us how to relish prasada. It's not that we're relishing prasada to eke out some sense benefit. That is seva apara. And by that we can become bound to material existence. By doing the seva apara to prasada. By trying to exploit the prasada for sense gratification. By that seva aparad, we can get bhukti, but we cannot get mukti, and we can never get mukti. Just like nam aparad, you can get bhukti, but you cannot get mukti, and you can never get prema. So prasad aparad, prasad seva aparad, is also similar. Any seva aparad, you can get bhukti, you can get elevation to heaven. But you cannot get mukti. And mukti, you hope to get. So Prabhupada has taught us how to relish prasad. What is this relishing prasad? It is not the gratification of our tongue that we personally try to enjoy, the flavors of the prasad and the kind of sense gratification. What is the proper consciousness? There's to understand, first of all, to understand how that preparation, by our tasting it and appreciating it, we can get a glimpse of what Krishna must have tasted and appreciated about that preparation. And not only that, but we can appreciate the trouble, the energy, the efforts of the devotees who prepared that preparation for Krishna's pleasure. And then above and beyond that, we can relish the sweetness of Krishna's kisses. Through that appreciation of flavors of that offering to Krishna as a reciprocation from Krishna's. So, similarly, Srila Prabhupada has instructed that we offer Krishna what he likes. It's not that we offer the veggie burgers and the vegetarian shish kebabs. You know, because it's something that we like, and to Krishna, so that to make it karma free, so that when we're eating, you know, for our own sense gratification, we're not being implicated in karma. You know, you're not going to get implicated in karma, but you're going to get implicated in aparad. You know, so we don't. We offer Krishna what he likes. You know, and what does he like? What does he like, Ram Roy?
Like Radharani.
He likes Srimati Radharani. So we offer Radharani to Krishna, and we relish the Krishna. What is prasad? What is the sweetness of the face? As a male egoist, we try to relish the sweetness of a woman's face for our own sense gratification. How dare us think in those terms? Krishna Prasad is the Antaranga Shakti of Krishna. It is Ladini Shakti. It is meant for Krishna's pleasure. And it's meant to help us to understand the meaning of Krishna's pleasure pastime. The sweetness of Krishna's pleasure pastime. So by relishing Radha's beauty in terms of how Krishna enjoys that beauty, the sweetness, then we can also participate in relishing the nectar from Krishna's lips, both directly and indirectly. Although we don't desire, but Krishna forces it. Radharani loves that. She wants to share. Have you read Krishna Bhavanamrita? Sri Krishna Bhavanamrita? You read Govinda Lila? Why not?
Well,
These books are there. They're so important. Have you read Radha Rasa Shri? It's also evidence, yes. There's also evidence.
Something like some people involves with
Famous.
famous.
Love life.
And but they didn't have probably
Yeah. Anyway, you'll be here for a while. Maybe we should get into reading that.
Again, yeah.
But I read most of the Krishna classes here. I mean, I heard all of them. Except all these, Krishna most of these Rasika groups I read. All,
So anyway, the quintessence you will find in Krishna Bhavanamrita.
What I'll try to do, I'll get all Krishna classes with you.
Krishna Bhavanamrita doesn't have everything.
No, whatever he has translated, so I get all this library, all the Rasika books, and get them. And I can read.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Because we should have something like, not just somewhere. We should have all what he has.
Yeah,
except
under
for
lock
this-
and key.
Yeah, yeah.
Hidden from the GBC.
Yeah, then
And
this
hey,
is
it
good.
rhymes.
Because these two books are condemned by GBC, you know, the Hindu Lamrita and also Krishna Karnamrita, Krishna Bhavanamrita. Although he already prepared manuscript to print, and he gave it to someone to read. And then, you know, someone or another gave him a line to just print these books. Although before he printed all the books, yeah, on these books.
You know, we have them from other people as well.
So I can get all of them.
Yeah. Anyway, if you can bring his also.
It's like 100 volumes.
Words.
100 volumes.
Oh,
Literature,
yeah.
books.
It's actually transmitted the essence of the Babas in his writing. It's a question of the penetration, the eligibility. Devotees don't have the eligibility, so they don't seek what Baba is given. They don't bother. They don't take the trouble to do the needful in the matter of whatever is necessary to come to the position of entering in, you know, to the subject matter deeply enough, opening up, penetrating. You hear so many times. I've heard so many times. I don't know about you, how our ISKCON movement is either from the side of those who are protagonists of Vaidhi Bhakti, or from those who are say, dissatisfied with what they perceive to be the Vaidhi Bhakti program, which is only what has been given to us. It is not.
Actually, Prabhupada himself speaks.
So we want to be the...
I mean, we have high whereas eyes, you can see that Prabhupada himself, he can just...
Prabhupada is laced with nectar.
Yeah.
If you're intelligent, it's just like, the example is given sometimes of a beautiful woman. When a beautiful woman is dressed in sheer cloth, it's enhanced, but you can't exactly see the details of her form unless that cloth becomes wet by tears. When your tears will wet the purports of Srila Prabhupada, then you'll be able to see more clearly, and yet even still, it is obscured. And the desire, it enhances the desire to remove the covering, to see the form, to relish the form. So, in a similar way, that the womanly form creates a kind of intriguing, what do you call it?
Infatuation.
Infatuation, yes, in the mind of a man. So similarly, Prabhupada, by covering with various purports pertaining to Varnashram Dharma and all this other dry, useless, not useless, but yeah, you could say it is external,
Secondary.
Gona Bhakti, or Gona Vritti. So whether he conscientiously did it or not, by Krishna's arrangement, it is done in such a way. Because after all, Srila Prabhupada said, I didn't like this, Krishna loved this.
Mm-hmm.
So Krishna has arranged in such a way that the beauty, of the Brajalilas, beauty of Brajapati, etc., has become slightly covered, or even considerably covered, just in such a way as to make the reader cry for Krishna, cry in anxiety of feelings of separation from Krishna due to the fact that there's apparently insufficient, nectar, so it makes you work harder. But when you work harder, you appreciate what you get more. If you're actually working, if you're actually crying, if you're actually drenching those purports with your tears, upon even getting a little something of inspiration in that area. And the more you become fit like that, the more you'll realize that there's more than you thought there was. Upon your first reading, or your second reading, or your 10th reading of Prabhupada's books, the more you'll realize that there's so much inspiration.
How about how reading Prabhupada's purports while you read the other books, how it assists you? There's a certain fidelity that you have in chastity to Prabhupada that you carry with you till you read
But you can also, just like after reading Jaiva Dharma, it was very easy for me to see how Prabhupada was upholding the principles of Jaiva Dharma in his purport. And it helped me to appreciate where he's coming from, his heritage, etc. To see how it was presented. And things were presented very nicely in Srila Prabhupada's books. But it's just a question of penetration. Fools think that Prabhupada has just given us the brown paper bag of Vaidhi Bhakti. Is the point that I like to make. And so they think that to throw away ISKCON as being simply, I would say, an institution which is primarily absorbed in this external, external bhakti, preaching and all these things. But actually, But if we will simply take a little trouble, if there's a little interest to search out the essence of what Srila Prabhupada is trying to convey to us, then we will open the brown paper bag and see, valuable jewels of $1 million, which solve all of our diamond. But devotees recklessly, due to misunderstanding, due to the inability, the insufficient adhikar, to appreciate the very, very valuable things.
Insufficient quality, sometimes they have diamond, with insufficient, like, polymers, insufficient polish, and not shining, and you can resemble all the qualities of diamond because they're insufficient polished, so insufficient qualities, less qualities, less shine.
We have to do a little work. He wants us to work. Polish the diamond.
Yeah, because you can enjoy the square diamond, it's a diamond. So it's really sure like thousands.
Multifaceted. I bet your bears are waiting for you. It's 12 o'clock again? Is it 12 o'clock?
12.
Yeah, oh my God. I didn't cook any rice for them. I was going to cook some rice. I keep not eating it. I think I'm getting weaker and weaker. I don't eat properly.
I'll get tomorrow something like tell you, searching for what desire, that takes a lot of energy. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Really, man. So, taking
You
like
can't
Little
find
anxiety.
Krishna in Lower
I'm
Bazaar.
going through all, these types, and if I enter into really zone, and you get like stolen all these, perfect things. All these mobility was stolen, like, that's what we want to stay with some trophy, and freaking, it's like that, It's like, so what we should get? I can get tomorrow,
What?
to get some.
No, well, I got, someone brought me. Everything is
So I'll
here.
get carried.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.